Today, I'm here with Tommy Frazier. He's pastor of Mold Breakers Church. We have been together now for several years. I can't remember. I think it's about 10 years.
About 10.
And we have been providing Christmas to homeless kids for all these years. Now, we started actually before Tommy and I got together. And let me just tell you a little bit about that. I found out that we had so many homeless kids in the Waco ISD. And so I thought, wow, we had just started our Things from the Heart store the previous year. I said, how about I told my people, we're going to collect toys for homeless kids here at the store. And we made a box and we had it decorated with wrapping paper and stuff like that. Long story short, we collected toys for about 125 kids. So I gave that to the lady that was in charge of the homeless liaison at that time, Cheryl Pooler, for Waco ISD. And she didn't say anything to me. She just smiled, and her and her people took the toys. After Christmas, she called me up and said, we can't do that again. It took me and my staff 5 days to deliver all those toys.
Yep.
We've got to find another way to do it. She was thrilled with the idea of getting toys for some of those kids, but she said that was a lot of work. And then she's the one who actually introduced me to you, and you got to find out what we do, and we found out what you do. And actually, it's like one of those marriages made in heaven kind of thing, because what we do together is almost irreplaceable. What we did alone wasn't good enough, but we still had the idea to do kids. Now, we've been doing this for 10 years.
10 years.
Tell me about it, Tommy. What do you think we've done in 10 years?
Well, first of all, that story about how we met was so cool, because I'd been working with another group doing toys for kids. And I heard Cheryl speak too and talk about the necessity of the homeless kids. So I went and met with her. I said, hey, I've been doing this other program. Can we start a program and work and get these kids some Christmas? And she said, well, there's another guy doing it. Why don't y'all hook up? And that's how you and I got together. She put us together, and then, we started handing out gifts and toys and taking care of kids. And now it's just evolved into what it is today, which it's not just homeless kids. We're just taking care of kids all over Central Texas.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm amazed at how it's grown through the years. There was a time when we rented 15,000 square feet of the convention center, and we'd have games for the kids to play, vendors providing food for them. So we'd feed them and let them have plenty of time to play. And then we'd give them all these great gifts. I mean, that was a real process, but that was expensive too. We spent a couple $1,000s just on the room and all that other stuff. But now the way that we're doing it, I'm excited about it. COVID pushed us into a direction that we didn't expect to go. Nobody expected some of the things that have happened out of COVID, but it's pushed us in a direction where we're getting the people to come to us. We let them know via the media, the Facebook, social media, whatever. And now we can tell them, hey, we can help you. Yeah. And you guys do such a wonderful job. You have a couple other churches that I don't want you to talk about that working with you. We've got 10 phone lines that people call in on?
Yeah. I'll just kind of go through the logistics. The way it happens is people have to call in and register. And we have set up about 10 phone lines. And this year we're expanding more Hispanic lines, because we've noticed that there are more and more non-English speaking people that are needing help. So we're going to expand that. We've got churches in Waco that work with us that are Spanish churches. They provide us with people that speak Spanish, and so we can cover that group of people also, and it's awesome. But then, so they call in, they give us all their information, age and gender of all their children, and then people donate toys, donate gifts, and we go buy toys and gifts, because there is an age group that for some reason, and I don't care what group you work with, people just don't like to buy gifts for that age of kid for some reason. They want to buy them for the littler kids and the girls. They love buying Barbie dolls and things like that. So we have that group that we go buy for. So then we have a big shopping day. We go and buy, and then we come in and we package it all together, and which is really cool. We have a group of people now that's been doing it for years.
Yep.
And they kind of got it down to a fine art. And and they put all the packages together and get it ready, and then we have our day. And on our day, we sit here and hand these out, and not just hand out gifts. We hand out hope to people.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
We hand out hope because I'm just going to back up just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because in this building that we have now, we have the upstairs. We've got 5,000 square feet up there. That's Santa's workshop from November through December. That's Santa's workshop. And I just love it because you talk about the crew. They can come in. They all work. They come in the evening, spend some time here getting things sorted and into shape so that we can start putting things together. And it's not just a toy. It's a bag of toys. We're talking about huge bags of toys that we provide to a family. That excites me. Yeah. That excites me. Last year, it was the first time that we did our distribution from here. I think that took us about 6 hours to do that.
Took us a while. But that's all right. You know, whatever it takes to make sure that these kids and families understand that there's people that care about them.
Yes.
And that want to make sure. My whole goal in this, and this is what I've always told people, even when I've worked with other programs, is I want these kids to have Christmas like my kids have. I want them to be able to open up on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve, whenever they do it, and open their gifts and have Christmas like my kids get to have.
Yep.
And I want them to not just sit there with maybe a pair of underwear or socks for Christmas. And there are groups that do that, and that's awesome, okay? Because that's needed. But I want them to have a Christmas like my kids, where they get toys, the toys, the things that kids actually want today. And that's what's so cool about when we go shopping, is we take some people with us that have kids of different ages, and we say, what do your kids want?
Yeah.
And then we've even, and you and I both have done this, we've even stopped families in the Walmart or the Targets or wherever we're shopping and said, hey, you got a kid this age, what does your kid want right now?
Yeah.
And then we'll grab as many as we can off the shelf and buy them, because we want these kids to feel like, because a lot of the kids that we deal with, they're kids that, some of them, the only meals they get are at school. Some of them, the only positive feedback they get in life are at school. And so for them to get something from another source that gives them some positivity, that gives them some hope, that gives them some life, is much needed. And it's much needed. But I think some of the families, though, I've watched some of the grandmas and the moms get as excited about the opportunity that they can actually give their kids or their grandkids something at Christmas. That's what I love to watch. Is I love to watch those families get excited.
I like to see the joy in these kids. I like to see them light up. As you're talking, Tommy, I'm thinking about some of the things that we've been through. It's fun watching these kids at Christmas time light up when they see all those bags of toys.
Yeah.
They don't have any idea what's in there, but they just get lit up. But I'm also thinking about some of the kids. We've had people that couldn't come to the parties that we had, or couldn't come here to pick up their toys that we delivered to. Yeah. They're all, and when we would deliver those things on Christmas Day, it's like finding desperate situations.
Yeah.
People living in houses with no water, no electricity, no heat. I mean, on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that breaks my heart to see that kind of thing. So I know that what we're doing is making a difference. We're touching a lot of people.
Exactly. You know, a couple of stories I love to tell, because they hit so much, they hit home to me, is that first year that you and I did this, and we had about maybe 25 bags, 30 bags left over that they couldn't come to the party. So we divide them up. You took some, I took some. And so I was taking them to an area of town that, and I had my wife with me, and another lady from our church was with us. And I drive through the parking lot of these apartments, and I'm like, my whole back of my truck is full of bags of toys. And I'm thinking, I can't leave my truck out here with all this stuff in it, not in this neighborhood. So I tell my wife another day, I'm like, hey, I'll walk around these apartments and I'll find where I'm going to take these bags of toys. Y'all sit in the truck and hang on. So I walk around this apartment. I finally find the apartment number. I knock on the door, and a lady about 80 years old comes to the door. And she opens the door. I tell her who I am, why I'm there. I'll say, hey, I'm here from Toys from the Heart. We're bringing you Christmas.
Yeah.
And immediately She throws the door open, tells me to come in, and she starts hollering at her grandkids. She was a grandmother, 80 plus years old, that had 8 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment. 8 of her grandkids, because her children were either in prison or living a life where they couldn't take care of their kids. And so she was having to take care of them.
Yeah.
I walk in this house, it had one, like a love seat, not even a full couch in there, no dining room table, no TV, no anything, nothing for Christmas. And here's what the lady said. She calls her grandkids out and she says this. She says, I told y'all God would provide. I told y'all we would have Christmas. And immediately, hey, you know me, my heartstrings just, I start bawling, she's bawling, we're praying together, we're talking together, the kids are excited, they're grabbing bags and they're looking through them. But she just kept saying over and over again, I told y'all, God is faithful.
Yep.
And God will provide for us. And so I get out, I leave there, I leave the bags, I get out of my truck and I start telling my wife and this lady from our church, I start telling them what happened. And they were so mad. They're like, well, we didn't get to go in and see that. We wanted to see that, you know? And, but on the rest of that day, and then we come back and met that afternoon and talked. And both of us just had story after story of being able to share. And what it did was not just open up the opportunity to give a gift, but it opened up the opportunity to give the gift that Christmas stands for anyway, which is Jesus. And which is what I used to, that's the only thing I think I hate about not having a party anymore, is the fact that we would always have someone in English and in Spanish share the gospel with all the kids and their family members, whoever brought them. We would share the gospel, and it never failed that we always had some people get saved. And that to me was too cool. But my second favorite story is, after a few years of doing this and we started raising some money, we got to where we could give big gifts, and we would give them away. And when I say big gifts, tablets, computers things like that.
Bikes.
And one of the things that really drew me to doing this when I heard about these homeless kids was there's 2 stories that Cheryl told us the day I met Cheryl. One is that kids were trading sexual favors just to be able to wash their clothes because they were homeless. That one got me. I was like, golly. And now I help develop and get a place here in Waco called the Cove where these kids can go and wash their clothes and get a meal and everything. But the other thing she talked about that day was about these kids that they didn't have any place to go, and they didn't have any of these things, and that all of this stuff would bless them. And so I'm like, golly, okay, let's do this. And then she told the story of how that most of these kids that are homeless, especially in the high school age group, they're doing very well in school because they know their way out.
That's their way out.
Is education.
Yep.
That's the way they can get out, which you personally know that. And they can get out of the situation they're in through education. So about the 3rd or 4th year we had the party, a young girl come in and she won one of the laptops that we gave away. And we had a camera set up and we were interviewing her. And I asked her what that meant to her. And here's what she told me. She says, sir, I'm salutatorian. I'm like, wait a minute. This is a homeless girl.
Yes.
Yet she's salutatorian. And so she said, I have a full scholarship to go to the University of Texas. And my room and board, everything's taken care of. I'm going to get to go to college. She said, the last thing I needed that I didn't know how I was going to get was a computer. She said, and then here I am tonight, and I won this laptop computer.
Yep.
Dude, that again, it overwhelmed me to think, okay, here's a girl that has worked her tail off in horrible situations to get good enough grades to get a full scholarship. And she was still looking at one obstacle, but yet God provided.
Yes.
And he provided through what we did.
And let me just say something about that. We're talking about God providing. This whole Christmas thing is all about God providing. Yeah. We don't ever know how many kids we're going to provide Christmas for until we get to the end of, we're not going to take any more calls a few days just before our distribution. But God always provides. Now, you know this because I've shared it with you a couple of times. The number of families that we're serving right now is just, it's double what we were doing last year.
Yep.
The number of families that we served last year, children, 1,020.
Yep.
Now this year we're in Waco ISD, Conley ISD, La Vega ISD, and there's a whole lot more people out there in need. Have no idea how this is going to turn out this year.
Yeah.
But God's got this. We know
God's
that.
got it.
And there's people out there that might hear this message and God can touch their heart and they'll say, I want to get involved. I want to get involved. I want to get involved. You can donate money. You can donate toys, whatever. But this is all what I tell people about what we do with Shepherd's Heart is we are the largest faith-based pantry in the Central Texas area. And when people donate to us, it's God working through them. It's them feeding this community. It's them providing Christmas to this community. So this becomes a community thing, not just what we're doing.
Definitely. Definitely community. And, and ways people can get involved, like you said, is giving. Of course, monetary, because we end up spending a lot of money buying gifts. But the other thing is, man, if you have a business or things, I'll just kind of share with what my wife does. My wife runs a company here in Waco. And for last year and this year, it's going to be bigger this year, and she's doing it earlier this year. They throw big parties for their families. And to get into those parties, the families have got to bring toys that will be donated, Toys from the Heart. And so last year, I don't remember how many she got donated, but this year it's going to be bigger and better. And this year they're actually doing it at their Thanksgiving meal. When they bring families in at their Thanksgiving meal, they're saying, hey, you don't have to pay to get in, but what you got to do to get in is bring us a new toy.
And that's the kickoff for Christmas.
Exactly. And that's a kickoff for Christmas, man. It's awesome. But we know several businesses in this town that do the same thing. They'll say, hey, we're going to have, even some of them, it's their company party. Right. And they'll say, hey, to get into our company party, bring toys for Toys from the Heart.
The Baylor Club.
Yeah. Baylor Club does a lot of that for us.
Wonderful, wonderful.
There's ways you can get involved, and we want you involved. We want others involved. We want people involved because, like you said, this year, I got a feeling, and that it's going to be bigger than we've ever even imagined it to be. And
the place that we're going to do our distribution this year, we're not going to mention that.
That's right.
That we got to keep that a secret until the very end. But I think that we'll have an opportunity out there to do something there that we haven't been able to do for the past couple of years, and that's share the gospel.
Exactly.
We've got an environment that's set up particularly for it.
Yeah. We'll be able to share the gospel out there, and it just, I mean, last year, like you said, it took us about 6 hours here because the logistics just weren't. We did the best we could with what we had. Yeah. And but this year, being able to move this and where we're going to take this thing is, like you said, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun day when we distribute. I promise you that.
Absolutely. I just see excitement. I'm excited thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm excited thinking about it.
Yeah. I was talking to some of our people and some of our other churches that are helping, and told them, hey, we're and at that point in time when I talked to them, we were narrowing it down to 2 locations, and we said, hey, one of these 2 locations is where we're going to do this, and they were like, oh, both of them, those locations, that's going to be phenomenal that we get to do this. So again, it's we're blessing citizens and people of our community. But again, we're just an arm. We're just part of the sticking the hand out there to help. But the rest of the body is what makes this thing go.
All of us together makes this work. We get to be the ones that do some of the work and orchestrate it. But I'm just excited for what our community does.
Yeah. I am too. And that's and I know we're talking about Christmas right now, but when I first met you. Our church was feeding some homeless and doing some things like that and getting involved in different areas. And we'd really thought about doing a pantry. And I met you and I was like, wait a minute. Instead of us starting a pantry, we ought to just help with this one that's already going and work with them. And then what we did is we found some niches of areas that you don't do. And then we opened a pantry doing that. Yeah. And now that's evolved into the fact that we're doing diapers for all of these high schools and all these kids because God has blessed us to be able to do that. And but I said that to say this, it's that collaboration though.
It's working together.
It's working together. Exactly.
It's called synergy.
That's it. Well, and I'm gonna tell you, if you want to talk about in the Bible, what it's called the kingdom.
Yes.
And one of the problems is a lot of churches, they're so mean-minded. They're worried about their church and just their church. And it ain't about my church. It's about the kingdom.
About the kingdom, exactly.
That's why I work with Shepherd's Heart. I work with other groups, and our church partners with people, because that's what the kingdom of God does. Yes. Is it partners, and then it makes this thing go. And that's why we're able to do what we do, because we see this as a kingdom project. It's not my project. It's not your project. It's God's project. So here's the deal. When we say it's God's project, guess what else we just put on God? He's got to provide for it. It's his project. I don't have to provide. You don't have to provide. It ain't our project. It's God's project.
Yep.
So I love it. This year, Christmas is going to be, like I said, it's we're living in times, when you look at our times right now, the inflation rate, everything going on, people losing jobs, people afraid to go to their jobs because still being afraid of COVID and things like that. And people got used to not working. And I think some people kind of like that, so they just don't want to work anymore. And so you've got a whole lot of factions going on here. But what it has created, it's created more and more of that poor mentality in people that say, "Hey, we're gonna do this. We'll live here, and we're okay with living here." But here's what's happening: is that with everything else going on around us, that means just like your pantry is having to feed double the people than it's ever fed before, we're going to have to help more people too.
Yeah.
And we love doing it because that's, the Bible's it's so open to telling people, Jesus looked at him, he said, "The poor you're going to have with you always." And he said, one of the commandments, I love this. Christians want to worry all the time about how they act and, am I sinning? Am I doing this? I'm more concerned there's that scripture that says, you know what? I was sick. You didn't visit me. I was in prison. You didn't visit me.
Yeah.
I was naked. You didn't clothe me. I was hungry. You didn't feed me. And they're saying, well, when did we ever see you like that, Jesus? He said, well, when you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me.
Matthew 25. That's my foundation.
That's it. And I think we have to, I think as a church body, I think as it being kingdom minded, we've got to start pushing that more to our churches, that it's our job. It's who we're supposed to be, to go and be kingdom minded and to help to feed the poor, to feed the hungry, to clothe those that are naked, and which you run the gamut on a lot of that. I mean, with your store, you're helping clothe people. With your pantry, you help feed people. With the Christmas program we do, we give presents to kids and people. So, I mean, but that's the body of Christ. That's what we should be doing.
I think this is really an important time for us as the body of Christ to be able to draw together and work together. I'm going to tell a little story. You've heard me tell this story once before. A friend of mine tried growing some lemon trees, and all he planted was some lemon trees, and he kept working with them, fertilizing them. He couldn't get any fruit out of them. After a few years, he said, I'm going to throw these away. I'm going to plant some orange trees. And so once he planted the orange trees and they started to mature, it started pollinating the lemon trees, and they cross-pollinated.
Yep.
And he wound up with having lemon trees and orange trees. And I'm saying this in regard to churches and Christians in general.
Yeah.
We need each other.
That's right.
In order to be fruitful in this world, we need each other. And that's what makes the whole thing work in the kingdom of God.
Yeah, that's what makes it work.
Yeah.
I ran into a young man a few weeks ago, and we do another thing is, I'm the chaplain for Waco High Football. We feed their football team every week. We minister to them. We do that. But what we found out is it was crazy, because one of the first years that I was doing this, I was on the football field, and the coach, a fight had broken out, and the coach looked at me. He said, "Will you deal with this? Will you handle these kids that got in a fight?" I said, "Sure." As a pastor, as a former coach, I said, "Yeah, I'll deal with them." So I take one of the kids aside, and I begin to talk to him. And I go back and I tell the coach, I'm like, that kid right there is homeless, right? And the coach looks at me and he goes, I didn't know that. He goes, "How do you know that?" And he goes, I'm like, "Do you know you have any kids on your team that are homeless?" He's like, "No." I said, "Okay, that kid. Out of about 150 kids, there were about 30 of them who who are listed as homeless. And he said, well, maybe that's why they're acting the way they act. I said, exactly. I said, these kids they're struggling in life, and they're mad at the world. They're this.
They need a father.
Oh yeah, they need a father. And so we got to talking about that, and he started doing some cool stuff to help those kids out. But I'll never forget that football team. Some of the kids came to our Christmas party. And then later in the year, because those older kids, what we do with them, we take care of them in a different way. He come to me and he said this. He said, Pastor, he said, I want to show you something. I said, okay. He said, I took what I got for Christmas from you guys. He said, and I bought my little brothers and sisters some coats. He said, because they didn't have coats. Mm. He said, and I didn't need a coat. He said, and he's a big old boy. He said, I can handle the weather. He said, and I have a coat. He said, but my brothers and sisters didn't have one. He said, but with what y'all gave me for Christmas, I was able to take care of my little brother and sister. And I was like, now how cool is that? Because we were willing to do what God has called us to do and give to him, that he's like, hey, I'll pass this on down the line.
Right.
He could have been selfish. He could have said, hey, this is my Christmas present. I'm going to buy me something. I'm going to get me, it's my Christmas. No, he saw a need in his younger brother and sister. And he said, hey, but that's how the kingdom works. That's how the things of God work, is we are supposed to be that example.
And by doing that, we change things.
Exactly.
And it doesn't happen always overnight. It's not always what we expect, but we change things.
Exactly.
Every year.
And that young man went on, played college football, got his education, and is doing pretty well now. And
yep.
You know, when you see those things happening, and you see the stories of that happening, it makes you look back and say,
it was worth
this
it.
is worth it.
Yeah.
This is worth it. All the hard time, all the extra money we spend, all the and you and I are both top A personality, and it gets a little heated sometimes when we're trying to get all this done, and because we want it done this way and that way and this way. But at the end of the day, we both have a common goal.
Yeah.
And we both sit here and say, hey, wait a minute. No, this is what it's about. But what I love the most is the fact that then we're sharing that on down, and we can see that trickle down.
And they see that in us, so that they're looking for something that they see in us, and that's what we want them to see, is something good.
Yeah. Because most kids, especially kids that live in a homeless situation, what has been dealt them really came out of selfishness. Okay. Mama and daddy are selfish. They'd rather take care of themselves than their kids.
Right.
Okay. So when someone like us comes along and does something for them that says, hey, wait a minute, we don't get anything out of this. We're doing this simply because of who you are and because we want to help. Then that feeds into them, and it feeds into where what had been, they had looked at all their life as something negative, especially from adults. Now they're finally getting something positive, and then they can take and start reproducing that and replicating that. And then once they start replicating it, it can start healing some families.
And it's things like that from my past, okay, that made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
There were some people that did something for me that they didn't have to do, and they made a difference. And there were people that I didn't really know that well, but I never forgot them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny. People sit here and look at us today, and you ran businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses. I've coached, I've got state championship rings, and we've both been successful. But at the same time, just like you don't know everybody else's story, people don't know our stories, and they don't understand that. And like I was telling you earlier, I lived in the projects growing up.
Yep.
I mean, I was kicked out of public schools because I wasn't a good kid, and so if I'm a kid that I had a dad and I had some good stuff at home, I was pretty much raised in a Christian family. And if I can still go, how much more against the curve are the kids that are not raised that way? Right. And that are struggling, and there's somebody, but even me, even though I was raised in a good family, even though this is, and even though I had some problems, it still took someone else. You know, when all the schools in Waco, I was in the 8th grade going into the 9th grade, and WISD, other schools around here, Robinson, Johnson, them, no, we won't accept them in our school because I'd been kicked out of WISD and for doing some stuff that wasn't good. And but a small private school, the pastor, they weren't going to take me at first either because they didn't want to take a bunch of bad kids. And the pastor of that church said, we'll take a chance on him and work with him. And I owe that pastor my life. I mean, but then also he hired a man that year as the football coach that became my football coach that to this day I'm still in contact with, and I still have to, every time I talk to him, I have to say thank you, because I needed someone in my life to speak life into me, to help me when I felt like other things weren't helping me. And we all need that.
Yep.
And so we never know, you and I both never know the effect we have on somebody's life until later on.
And the thing of it is it doesn't matter to me whether I realize that.
Right.
At the time, I want to be the person that can be the difference maker. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a whole lot of kids that need our help.
Exactly. You know, I walked in, speaking of, again, stories about what we do for Christmas. I walked into a restaurant a couple years ago, and the first year we did this with you, my church also said, hey, can we go a little above and extra? And so we talked to the lady, and she said, we got a couple of families, huge families, that are living in hotels. And I said, well, let's do a meal for them. And so we went a little above what we were doing, what you and I were doing. And our church just took about 10 families, and we just fed them a big Christmas meal and just let them feel like it was Christmas. And so a couple years ago, I walk into a restaurant, and I'm standing there and I'm ordering my food, and I'm about to pay, and a man walks out, and he says, you don't ever pay anytime you eat here. And I'm like, and I didn't recognize him. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, you don't recognize me, do you, Pastor? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. And he said, 5 years ago, he said, I was part of that family that you took care of. He goes, and then also Toys from the Heart took care of all of our kids. He goes, my brother's kids, my kids, he goes, we'd fallen up on hard times. He said, we'd lost our houses, we'd lost everything, we were living in hotels. He said, and we had nothing. He said, and because of y'all, because of Toys from the Heart, he said, our kids had Christmas that year. He said, and Pastor, now you see me, I manage a restaurant. He said, I wasn't just somebody, he said, I got back out of that situation. I manage a restaurant now. And he looked at me, and he looked at the young lady that was sitting there waiting on me. And he said, he never pays when he comes in. And he looks at me and he goes, don't you ever pay again. He goes, if you don't see me, you tell them to find me. He goes, I don't ever want you to pay a bill when you walk in here. Now, here's the deal. We don't do it for that reason.
Right.
At all. That's not our reason. I don't do it so I can get something back. But the fact,
that's gratitude, though, on his part, because he was so grateful.
That's it.
For what
he was so grateful.
Yeah.
Because we gave to his kids, and we blessed his family. That now he wanted to bless my family.
See, you can't stop that blessing process. Once you get it started, it's like the waves in the ocean. They just keep going on and on and keep spreading out further. And so I'm excited about what we do.
Man, I love what we do, Bob. I love our Christmas together. And like I said, I'm looking forward because this year is going to be bigger and better than it's ever been.
Yeah. New model coming up. New model coming up.
New model. New challenges.
Yes.
Woo, but I love new challenges.
One of the things I'm really excited about this year is how everything's going to happen. We think that we're a little better organized this year than we've ever been before. About the 1st of November, we'll have all of our toy boxes placed in locations around the city. We'll put a list of those locations up on our website. It'll be on social media. It'll be all over the place. We'll put it out there. And the other thing is that we talked about we need toys. We need lots of toys. There'll be a lot of locations. We need a lot of toys this year because we're really expecting to double the number of kids that we served over last year. Everything that we are doing suggests that. We've already got people calling us to wanting to register. Those lines will open up the 1st of November. What we really need people to understand is that the toys, we need lots of toys. They don't have to be wrapped. We'll wrap them in a big, beautiful bag. And then there's money donations that go along with this. If you can give money or toys, either way. The toys, you'll need a collection location. We'll have that on our website. But for money, you can go to our website and just select toys and make a donation there. And we would just love you to do that. Oh, and one more thing, shepherdsheartpantry.org. That's the place to go.
If you're in need this Christmas, we would love to help you. And so if that's you, there's going to be a number across your screen, or there's going to be a number you can call at the website that you can call and register. What we would ask though is that because of these times, there are a whole lot of young kids and people that are in need. If you've already registered for another toy program to get your kids Christmas, please don't double up and register on ours also. Let's save spots for every family so that every kid can be taken care of this Christmas. But the process is simple. Once you know that number, all you got to do is call it. There'll be operators that will take your information. Be courteous, be kind, give them all your information, and then they will tell you how to get your gifts and how to pick them up. So call in, call that number, talk to them, let them know what's going on. But like I said, please, if you are already registered, stick with the one you're with and don't come with Toys from the Heart. But if you're not on anybody else's list, please call the number for Toys from the Heart. We would love to help you. Also, as Bob has said, you can go to shepherdsheartpantry.org and there'll be all the information on there, or you can go to mbf254.com and all the information will be on there, where you can sign up, how you can sign up, and how you can give, and everything else that we need to make this program run.
Thank you.
And thank you.
And the